It's the hardest thing that anyone can do. I find it's the greatest joy that anyone can do. It gives you the best times and the worst times. Unbelievable depths of despair with parenting when things don't go right.
I think that it's the hardest job I've ever done, especially being a single parent. I've been on my own for about 2 years, and I think it's the hardest work I've ever done.
Our second son has many disabilities, and I think that is incredibly difficult in terms of all the battles.
There are some really big issues in parenting. I just wish that it was easy. I wish there was a magic answer. I wish there was just a recipe. But I'm sure if there were, then every person on earth would know it. And what I've had to learn is that there aren't any magic answers, and you do this stuff day by day. And at the beginning, 15 and a half years ago, I had no idea, really.
When are we going to Granny?
Have you seen the car keys?
When are we going to Granny?
Try your jacket pocket. Oh, where did you get those from? You'll never eat your lunch now. Michelle, are you ready yet?
They're not in my jacket. You sure you didn't tidy them away somewhere?
I told you, Steve, I haven't seen them. God, you're useless. Jason, would you stop doing that?
You've already got a smack for that once today. You'll get another before the day's out. I'm sure I brought them in with me. Jason! Oh, you're useless! You're always tripping up on something. What's that crap on your face?
Afternoons from 4 o'clock onwards, I get to the stage where that could be a really bad time for both of us, but I've learnt over the years that that's the time when I've got to really give every ounce of energy and take as many deep breaths and count to 1,000 instead of 10, because that's the time you know she's going to pack out.
Especially on a lousy day. Kids are like caged lions, You've got to get them out. Go to Georgie Pie if you can afford it, or McDonald's, or go to the swimming pool, or just go out and see some friends, or go to your play group, or just go for a walk in the rain, just get them out. And then you come back and everybody feels so completely different.
It's not my natural state. My natural state is to be able to do what I like. Being tied down with kids is a bit of a problem. It's taken a lot of adjusting to. Yeah.
What's all the yelling about now?
Aren't you ready yet? For what? I told you we're going to Steve's parents' place for lunch.
You did not. No one said anything to me about it.
Do what you're told.
Why should I? You're not my father, thank God.
Michelle, don't speak to Steve like that. You're coming whether you like it or not. Now go and get dressed.
I am dressed.
Put something decent on.
I don't have anything decent.
You're not going looking like that.
Fine by me.
You've got to talk to them. You've got to listen to them, actually, is the big thing I find. I mean, you can talk to a child until you're blue in the face, and they're not going to listen to you unless they know that you're listening to them and giving them credit for what they're saying.
For us as a family, we couldn't function unless the children all took responsibility for them, for running the house and running the family. And we kind of try to see it that we're a team, we're on the same team, and there are times when it doesn't work. Because I think it's like that with any group of people. We're a little community, really.
How can you think for them when they're 18, 19 and they're out with their mates and out with their friends, unless they can recognise situations, interpret them themselves, and make a decision themselves that they're happy with? They'll go along with the crowd, and that may not be the best thing.
Oh, God, he is.
Oh, isn't he lovely?
Dad? Sorry, we're a bit late.
He's so cute.
Oh dear. Would you two leave things alone? Jason!
Right. What's the matter with you today? You've been told to leave things alone. Come on.
I think even when I'm ignoring it, I'm still getting quite wound up. And I'm pretending to myself that I'm not, but I can still be getting agitated and angry.
People said to me that I was so patient and tolerant and nice. You know, I'd be a really great mother. So to find that I could be really angry with a 6-month-old baby that had, you know, no intention of making me angry at all was frightening. And to find this part of me that could feel like hurting my child was horrifying.
Careful, dear, that chair's going to tip.
You got ants in your pants or something?
If you're a good boy and eat all your pumpkin, you can have some pudding.
I'm not hungry.
It's a great meal, Mum.
I'm a vegetarian.
In my day, children ate what they were given and were grateful for it.
Well, at least eat the pumpkin.
It looks like poos.
Right.
I was brought up with a generation of smacking. And I used to smack on the bottom, with the flat of my hand, hard. So I used to smack my daughter. One time, when she was about 9, I went to slap her face because she called me a very bad word, and I slapped the side of her nose and I made her nose bleed. That made me feel so bad, so full of guilt. I stopped myself smacking like that ever again. It made me feel physically sick that I could actually do that and draw blood.
She was a fairly fiery character, and she was clinging to my leg, screaming at me and shouting at me and crying, and I think by this stage I was probably crying too, and I couldn't stand her holding on to me. It just was the last straw, and I ostensibly went to get her off me. That was my aim through all this sort of anger, but actually I threw her much harder than I meant to, away from me, and just felt completely overwhelmed by what I'd done and by the level of emotion that had happened between us. And at that moment sort of vowed and declared that I would never get myself into that situation again.
I was trying to sort of parent in hushed tones. Be quiet. You know, stop that fighting. There are lots of people. There are people just around the hills. And parenting in hushed tones makes it worse. The stress builds up even more. You're trying to keep a lid on something, and you're trying to keep a lid on yourself, but you can't actually be open and say, you know, God, I'd like you to stop it, or I feel like strangling you. And that just built up, and one incident, and I just went whack like that, and I hit him quite hard, and I actually hit him on the side of the head, which is, you know, an absolutely terrible thing to do, and I immediately felt, you know, just awful about it. And what amazed me was that he went off in a big huff, and then the other kids, because it was sort of unusual and strong, one of them just turned to me and just said, "You didn't have to do that, Dad. God, he's never going to come back now. Why is he going to come back and join us and get hit again?" And it was such a shock to everyone concerned. And that night, he was in my tent, and I said to him, I'm sorry I hit you. And he said, "That's all right, Dad, I probably deserved it." And I just said, "No kid deserves that. No, you can't. As a parent, I can't do that. You can expect better from me."
I think that all the fine theories in the world go out the window if there's, I don't know, lack of money, lack of support, the drains are blocked, the washing machine's not going, all of that sort of thing that just needs to happen. And with working full-time and parenting, like on my own especially, things just have to go by clockwork. Kids get sick, and I don't have any family in Wellington. I basically pay for childcare if the kids are sick. That costs me a lot of money, and it's difficult. Like all those sorts of things. When things like that go wrong, that's when I feel the most stress and the most tension. So that's when I'm most likely to get really angry.
If I smack my child, which
I don't really believe in doing, but if I do, I would like to think I did it for reasons of discipline. But if I'm really honest with myself and looked at the times I had smacked my children, I didn't do it for reasons of discipline. I did it because I'd lost my temper.
The worst period I ever had with my little girl was when she was about 8 months old, and she had bronchitis and she hadn't been sleeping well for a long time, and we're talking about being up hourly in the night for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I think we're talking about serious sleep deprivation, and it was the first time in my life that I felt violent towards her, and I did hit her 2 or 3 times. Probably I smacked her 2 or 3 times.
I learnt occasionally to take the phone off the hook, leave the baby in the cot and go to bed. And sometimes that meant going to bed at 9:30 in the morning, and you felt really silly. Well, I felt really silly, but it wasn't silly, of course, it was survival.
I used interventions for me. I changed the way I dealt with her. I stopped more quickly. I put her in her room more quickly. I walked away more quickly. If I felt like I was coming up against, some flash point in myself. And I got other people to look after her. I made sure that she got out of the house more.
When you're stuck with a baby that's been screaming for 18 hours and has done for the first 6 months of its life, every day, 18 hours, and the only time it's asleep is when you're rocking it in a pram, I came to the conclusion that a baby's not going to hurt itself screaming, but if you're in there with it the whole time, you could hurt it because it's screaming. And so a number of times with my second daughter, Katie, who was really, really tough, I would just put her in the cot, pull side up on the cot, and I'd go and close every door in the house and sit on the doorstep and bawl my eyes out. Because I knew if I didn't walk away, I could hurt this little 7-week-old baby that was screaming because she had hip brace on and had colic and was, it's not her fault, but I knew that the possibility was there that I could really hurt her.
I have on the odd occasion actually walked out the back door and shut the door, leaving 2 of them yelling. They can see me, but actually leaving them, and I just sat out on the back doorstep for 10 minutes and let them cry, and I thought, you're safe. But I knew that I was really going to get angry, and actually managed to calm myself down and then go back and calm them down and say, I wasn't angry with you, but I was angry with myself.
You've already had a smack for that once today. You'll get another.
I always feel really bad when I've smacked them. I feel like I've broken a really basic rule. And in our house, we have rule number 1, no hitting. And inevitably, if I smack them, someone will turn around and say, you've broken the rules. The rule in our house is that nobody hits each other. And I think, well, I expect them not to hit each other, and there I've gone and hit them. It's about the worst modelling I could ever do in my life.
When Rosie hit Hannah, and I went up to Rosie and hit Rosie, and I said, you don't hit people, Rosie. And then I walked away and I stopped and I thought, oh, that I've just told Rosie not to hit Hannah, but I've just hit Rose. That's just crazy. That's just real double standards. And I think it was from that moment that I've never done it again.
I think it's important to teach them when they're feeling angry and upset what to do about it. And one of our children is, he's 12 now, but he tends to have outbursts of anger. And so we've worked with him a lot, I've worked with him a lot, and just trained him to recognise when he's getting angry and out of control, that what he needs to do. And the steps are that he's to remove himself from the situation and calm down, and then sit down and talk with an adult or somebody about it. So for a while we kept a chart and just a record of when he had the outbursts and what they were about and what we did. And so we really encouraged him to assess his own behaviour in that, and it worked. It actually has worked really well. And the other thing we always do is make him face up to the responsibility for his actions, that he chose to allow himself to be out of control because he knows. And so he always has to go back and apologise to people and put it right. Because I think in the end, the most important thing we can teach our kids is to take responsibility for their own behaviour, because we all need to learn that.
So
and
if you lose it,
yes, I have to put it right if I lose it with my children. I need to go back and apologise to them and talk about it with them.
Hello. Oh, hi, Tess. I can't. I've got to go to my stepfather's parents' place. Yeah, right.
Jason, get in the car.
Can I take the bike?
How many times do I have to tell you? Now get a move on.
hurry up, Michelle.
Oh, yeah. Like I have a really cool time.
She'll ring you back.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
Why do you have to push Steve like that all the time?
It's not my fault. Why do you always blame me?
My oldest is the same size as me now, and I cannot make her go to her bedroom. So if she says no, all I can do is, say, okay, this is what will happen now. The consequences of this are X. But often I just want her to go and leave me alone and stop the shouting. And if I can do that, if I can actually get her out of the situation, she will calm down. And then later, when everybody's stopped being angry, we can discuss it.
When we were having particular discipline problems in our family, we had a system of rewards for good behaviour, and we tended to try and ignore bad behaviour and take the time out strategy, which was, you're not pleasant to be around, please go to your room, rather than any direct form of punishment.
And I'll put her in her room without saying much at all usually, close the door, let her yell for a couple of minutes, and then open the door and say, you were put in your room because you hit me. Hitting's not okay. That's all. And, no lecture, that's it. And honestly, I think within 3 days, it was all over.
I don't send them to their bedrooms because I've always wanted their bedrooms to be sort of secure places, but we're lucky enough to have a door into the passageway, which is a fairly neutral space, and so I can shut the door. There have been times when I've had to stand against the door, holding it shut. That was hard.
Things like nappy changes happened, or there'll be a spillage here and you've got all this milk all over the floor, and things are just happening. They're crook, they're grizzling, they're screaming, or there's something. I mean, there are days when it just all falls apart, and my husband will walk in the door and say, that's it, I have got to get out of here. It's poor old husband walks in the suit, and I'm going, I say, look, Chris, you just got to take over. I said, I can't handle it anymore. And I'll get in the car and go and off to the beach and sit down at the beach and try and calm down. Or I'll shoot off to Mum's and say, I've got to have a coffee, Mum. I need some time out. I mean, there have been days where I've got up to here.
I will pick up the pace, stomp out of the place. They will know that I am wild. I really stomp out and I put it on the kitchen bench and I just go outside and sit on the back doorstep until I'm right.
You're not going looking like that.
Fine by me.
Put something on over that. Your green jersey.
It's dirty.
That's because you don't do any washing. You expect it to be done for you like everything else in this place. You don't do any cooking, any cleaning. You don't help with the baby.
Setting rules, breaking rules, punishments, groundings. I see that as a real sort of downward spiral, and at the moment I'm hopeful that by negotiating and by her seeing that I'm reasonable and that it's in her interests to obey, because then she gets to do what she wants. We both get what we want.
But I promised to meet Alice at 2.
It's really important to me that you come to Granny's because I know she'll have everything ready now. Can you come for the meal and then leave early?
Yeah, but I want to leave straight after the meal.
Okay. But I want you to ring Granny and let her know you're leaving early. Deal?
I guess.
Are you going to get changed?
Why? These are my best jeans. I love them.
Come on, let's go. I don't want to be late.
I see some parents still trying to dress 12-year-old children, for example. And I've just sit back and just say, wear whatever you like. It's nothing to do with me. You've got responsibility for that. If you're cold, you're cold. If you're hot, you're hot. And if I think you look stupid, so what? But you and your friends probably think you look really cool, and that's all the end of it. And when they come out and say, look at this, Dad, look what I've got, I just say, wow, that I bet you they all think you're a cool dude. And secretly I'm just thinking, God, I wish I wouldn't wear that. Terrible.
Out where we live, there's actually quite a current by our house. Occasionally you might let them go into that current knowing full well that they're going to get pulled away a little bit. As long as they're not in any immediate danger, then you have benefited by at least letting them know, hey, there is a problem there. They've experienced that problem. So yeah, it is important to allow them the leeway to make a mistake or to try something and fail on it, and then realise for themselves why you don't go out there.
The wonderful thing is that they do actually know that they're mistakes, and they do actually change their behaviour after a wee while without us, and it's so much more positive for them to be able to do it themselves.
It's not a big deal. We've just got to let some things go because you're too busy doing other stuff. But for instance, if it's her bicycle, the natural consequence of it being out in the rain is unacceptable. You know, I don't want that bike to get rusty and not work and have to replace it. So the logical consequence of her leaving the bike out repeatedly is to put it away so that she can't use it for a while, so that she knows that, that this is an unacceptable behaviour to leave the bike out in the rain, and she learns to bring it in so that she can continue to use it.
I firmly believe that if kids don't have rules and have limits, that they don't feel safe, and so they're going to push and push until they find those limits.
Jason, I don't want you riding the bike around the baby. If the bike falls on him, it could hurt. Now, he's just a little baby and we've all got to look after him.
I want to ride it.
All right, you can ride it in the hall, but not in here, okay?
I mean, what we're trying to do is bring up adults
Jason,
who think things
you
through
understand what I
and
just
think
told
of
you?
what's the consequence if I do that. So that if you've got four on the trampoline and someone falls off or someone gets hurt, why did it happen? And what's the rule? And who agreed on the rule? Who made the rule in the first place was them, because 2 works and 3 and 4 they don't.
And we use the timer for all sorts still. We've got a trampoline at one house, and it's my turn on the tramp. You said, right, we'll put the timer on 5 minutes. When the beeper goes off, it's the next person's turn. And it's something I guess it's once removed in the fact that it's not us saying, oh, right, now it's your turn, it's your turn. They know the beeper doesn't lie. And even now when they're playing with toys, they'll come and say, can you please put the beeper on, or the timer?
And I find that if you've got a rule and you're clear on it and strong on it, then the kids enforce the rules, and they enforce them absolutely rigidly for each other, you know. So if someone's watching 5 minutes more than their time, that they're the ones who are going to say, you know, sort of get out of this TV room, you've had your time.
I think the other thing with rules about things like jobs and those sort of day-to-day mechanical and maintenance type things is they do need to move over time, that you've got to keep coming back to them and reassessing them.
I know that kids still need limits, even when they're older. And discussing things with our oldest one, he wants limits. And when I've said, a couple of times I've said yes, and a week or so later, I've thought, I wish I'd said no. And I've said to him, I made a mistake, and I feel really unhappy about the decision that you made, and that I didn't feel I should say no to you at the time. But now I don't feel comfortable. And he says, but you said it was okay. And I said, yes, I did. And parents are allowed to make mistakes. Parents are not perfect. And he's found that a bit shattering. But I felt more comfortable about saying, well, I really don't agree with what you did. And
So
he
if
knows now.
When they're tired, they can get very bad-tempered, very naughty, very disobedient. Sometimes they're naughty and disobedient because they want attention. And if you sometimes just give them a cuddle instead of growling, if you give them a cuddle, sit them on your lap.
Jason, come and give me a big boy cuddle. It's a long time since I had a cuddle with you. Hey, since you're such a big boy now, do you think you can wash your face all by yourself?
I might burn myself.
Well, you won't need the hot tap. You know which one is the cold?
Yes.
See, I told you were a big boy now. Okay, all you have to do is run the cold water into the sink, put some soap on the flannel, and wash your face. Think you can do that?
Yes.
Of course you can. You've got to learn to read your child, and you can only do that if you spend time with them and talk to them and let them talk to you.
And I said to Hannah, "You are feeling really angry, aren't you, Hannah?" And she says, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, how would you like to go away and draw me a picture of the way that you're feeling?" And so well, I've never done this before, but she hopped down the table, went into the playroom, and I just left her to it, and she came back and she handed me this picture, and there was this wonderful picture of a little girl with a dress on and a little face with her mouth turned upside down, and she had pigtails that were straight out like this. And that was exactly the way that she was feeling. And after that, she was good. She was really good.
I've got a daughter who's gone on a beach trip. She'll be out in the fresh air for probably a total of 4 or 5 hours. And my other daughter's had a busy playgroup session, and then kindergarten. I can see that they're both going to be knackered by the end of the day. So I'm not going to make dinner. We're going to have fish and chips at about 4:30. They can have a shower, a bath, stories in bed. Boom, out of the way.
The 17-year-old will want it at 10:30 at night, probably when I'm exhausted and he needs to tell me, I don't know, about anything and everything. And the 6-year-old might need it straight after school when she's starving and wants to tell me about her day. Yeah, it is hard to do it, but I remember those days coming home from school and that lovely smell of cooking and things, and those are some of the pleasures that I can have with kids, so I try to organise my day.
When are we going to Granny's?
Just as soon as I've got the baby ready and Steve's found his keys. Do you like going to Granny's?
Not sometimes.
Why don't you like it sometimes? Hey, come and tell me what you don't like. Maybe I can help.
Well, it's boring.
How about we take something little with us that you like to play with?
For communication to be an effective tool, you've got to use it all the time. It is useless to try and start communicating when you have a dispute. You've got to have a basis for it. You've got to have listened to your kids and talk to your kids in the sort of easy times.
The main reason that I don't listen to them is that I'm either scared about what they're saying for their sake. You know, it may be that they're saying I hate school, and I can't hear that, you know. That's I don't want them to say that, so I try and tell them that they don't really hate school. They've got all these good reasons that school's really good, and you know, that's not what they're saying. They're telling me they hate school, and if I listen to that, then usually, well, it's not really I hate school, I just hate this thing that happened, you know, today at school. And in fact, they'll work their way through, and by the end of it, they'll be quite happy. But if I start, you know, not listening, telling them what they really think, then none of that happens.
Putting it in the I statement, I feel, or I, whatever emotion I'm feel good about, or I don't like it when, and then describe the behaviour. So it's sort of I, emotion, behaviour, rather than you kids always fight. It's I feel really upset when there's fighting in the house, and that sort of difference is quite important. It's not just playing with words. It's not putting down. It's describing how it's a reaction to me, because that's all I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for how I react to something that goes on. I can't change the weather, or I can't change what other people do to me, but I can change how I react to it.
He was obviously miserable, so I just cuddled him and I said to him, you know, it's really important to keep talking. I don't know what's happening for you. I don't understand. I've never been a boy growing up, but I want you to keep talking to me. And I just held him, and he cried, but he didn't really talk about it. But, you know, I went back. I always go back and kiss him goodnight.
Hey, Tessa, what do you think of Robbie?
What is it?
Well, when he's a bit of a cutie.
We would always sit down and have tea together and talk and find out what each other's been doing. We don't have a meal where everyone's got to be quiet. In fact, mealtime is when everyone actually talks and sits and talks a lot about what's going on. No one's allowed to leave the table until everyone's finished, for example, which obviously encourages discussion and talking. Yeah.
We were just so thrilled. Oh, wonderful.
Well done, Michelle.
Can we take some home?
Very easy to praise children. Children lap it up. The more you praise, the better they behave.
David wanted to build a garden, and I said, oh, yeah, okay, well, plan what you want to do and do all that, and away he went. And he just dug and did things and built a garden. And then when finished, went up there and I did a little bit of helping, and we went up there and just said, what a great garden, look at it, it's just wonderful. And he was so proud of it, and I was so proud that he'd done it. And I just you just need to let the children know how proud you are of everything, everything they do. They don't have to come top of the class, they just have to be happy about everything that they do.
We have certain key situations where she'll have a trigger that's going to set her off into a tantrum, and like normally it might take her 5 minutes to go through and have a good paddy. Sometimes it'll only take, for 30 seconds she'll think about it and she'll actually calm herself down, and that's the time that the praise, I find the positiveness works, and saying to her, very good. Now that you say to her, that was hard to not get upset about that, wasn't it? But I said, you did marvellously, and you see her, she grows about an inch when she realises she's done it.
When they come to me with something that's bothering them and they've taken some steps to try and sort it out, or often they will have sorted out completely by themselves, to say, well, that was good, wasn't it? You da-da-da-da. What I find is they don't want my solutions. They're not actually interested in what I've got to say about what they could have done or should have done or anything like that. So to actually validate what they've done is more positive for them.
Remembering to tell them that they're good at things. Not waiting for them to come home and say, look, Mum, look what I did at school today, and say, oh, yes, that's nice, dear. But looking for the times when they're not looking for recognition and give it to them before they ask for it. Sitting down doing homework, and I'll look over my daughter Lauren's shoulder and say, oh, wow, that printing's really neat. You've worked really hard on it today. And the grin that you get, is just present enough for any parent.
I think that I love the kids, like more than anything I do. I'd throw myself under a bus and walk across hot coals for them. And at the same time, they're the three people in the world who can get under my skin and can irritate me and can drive me crazy and sort of have me at the end of my tether, tearing my hair out. So it's that balance, trying to be in control and be the grown-up, as well as seeing the good side.
I've got 3 kids who are 9, 11 and 14, and I think it is a particularly good age for kids. They're old enough to be quite independent and not so old that they're really balking against your parenting. And I find it a really nice time.
I hope this video is not how to control your kids, because it sort of doesn't work like that. It's about parenting's about creating a situation where kids and parents can actually enjoy themselves in doing the things that they have to do, and the kids are sort of learning. They're getting the skills for life. We sort of joke and say, you can't leave home until you've got the 997 skills for life. And, this week you've demonstrated 2 of them, but there's another 200 to go.
I think children basically are naturally good, and that it's our job to treat them with respect and as individual people. They're not all little models of us. They're not a little model of me. They're their own little person. And the trick is to try and find out what it is about that little person that you can help them with.